So what is the BJP and Prime Minister Modi promising for those who vote in this election? This is the BJP manifesto that was released on Sunday, on the 14th of April, and not a moment too soon, because the first phase of voting is on the 19th of April. But I must tell you that this is normally how they do it. They release their manifesto a week before the first phase of voting happens. Now, while we're seeing the manifesto just now, we've seen the campaign play out across media for several weeks now. It started quite early, and the campaign has fundamentally been Modi ki guarantee, which we've heard the Prime Minister also say repeatedly in his speeches. And if you look at this manifesto, that's what this is about. This is this is a pitch for a continuity for the Prime Minister in his third term. That's what it's asking for. So a lot of analysts have looked at it, and it's not really promising anything new. What it's promising is continuity and stability and acceleration of what was already happening. I must point out that the document is about 76 pages long, and it refers to the country as Bharat almost through the entire document. There is a mention of India, but mostly it's called Bharat. And it is about the Prime Minister. Now, if you look at the front page, JP Nadda, the president of the BJP, is there. Smaller, but he's there. But really, this is a Modi ki guarantee, and it's clear that a lot of the analysts have also looked at it and said, they don't talk about BJP's promises. They don't talk about BJP's intentions. It's Modi ki guarantee, Modi's promises, Modi's intentions. Someone's done the numbers. I think the name Narendra Modi has been mentioned, or the name Modi has been mentioned 65 times. His photograph has been used 53 times in this document of about 75, 76 pages. They start off in this document talking about what has been achieved already, because remember, it's a continuation. It's nothing, it's not a new sort of promise. So they talk about abrogation of 370, building of the Ram temple, and of course UCC, which is Uniform Civil Code. These were the three things that were promised in 2014 and 19, two of which have been achieved. So there's the third one, which is now being promised now. Now, apart from that, it talks about delivering good governance, talks about delivering vikas, empowering Muslim women by removing triple talaq. This is the only place in which the word Muslim has been mentioned in this entire document. The Women's Reservation Bill, creating a startup hub in India. It also talks about how 60% of its ministers are OBC, SC and ST communities, and reducing left-wing extremism. Now, if it talks also about how they have managed to renovate the Kashi Vishwanath temple and the Ujjain Mahakal temple, and how it's going to continue to sort of push those ideas further. Like I told you, it is really a pitch for the third term for the Prime Minister, and it argues for a strong and stable government, essentially steering the country through what it is calling a period of global instability, referring to the two ongoing wars and conflicts in the country, in the world, and India's place in all of that. Now, let me take you through interesting promises that are being made. The one big interesting change, of course, now that the building of the temple in Ayodhya has done, how to take that forward. It talks about building the idea of Lord Ram and celebrating him in all countries, including setting up of Tiruvallur cultural centers globally. This is part of the appeal that the BJP is currently putting out for Tamil Nadu. And you can see in this video, we've done a deeper breakdown into that. But it also talks fundamentally about launching a global outreach program for documenting and promoting the legacy of Lord Ram in all countries. Now, in an analysis that was printed in the Deccan Herald, it noted that this is actually an articulated intention for India's diplomatic discourse to now include the core Hindutva ideology. And this is a really big sort of departure, because up till now, really, India's diplomatic sort of focus has been on figures like Mahatma Gandhi or Buddha, and BJP now proposes to elevate Lord Ram into that sort of lexicon of diplomacy and use the core Hindutva ideology diplomatically as well. That's a change, that's a development, it's worth noting. Implementation of three fundamental laws, and I told you already, UCC or Uniform Civil Code is really important here. The BJP saying that it believes women will only get equal rights if Uniform Civil Code is being, is implemented. Now, Uttarakhand has already done it. We don't know under what format it will be brought in nationally, but this will be an interesting thing to sort of watch and, to see how that is done. Again, implementation of the Citizenship Amendment Act has been noted here. It doesn't mention the NRC, which was mentioned in the 2019 election manifesto. And one election, one nation, one election. Again, the Prime Minister, brought it up again in an interview recently where he said that they are examining how they can conduct simultaneous elections across the country in one go. That's another thing that has been promised. Let's take a look at the next big category. For farmers, they have not promised the legal guarantee of MSP. What they have said is that they will look at increasing MSP on a regular basis. They will strengthen the Fasal Bima Yojana of the Prime Minister and make sure that there are faster payouts. Remember, we talked about a recent survey that said 59% of the people they spoke to believe that the farmers had a fundamental right to protest, and they had some legitimacy in the demands that they were making. So interesting there. Development, a big focus again, the word being used a lot, Vikas being used a lot, unemployment not mentioned as much, but really the suggestion here, if you look at it, is that through development, through infrastructure spending, through creating of startups, jobs will come rather than making a program for jobs. So there's no program for creating of jobs. The Modi promising to turn India into a $5 trillion economy by 2027 from the current $3.5 trillion economy, and also making Bharat the third largest economy in the world. Infrastructure development continues to be a focus, building of national highways, high-speed bullet trains, 3 high-speed bullet trains, and expansions of the metro network across the country. There's, like I said, no actual mention of a job project, but infrastructure, aviation, railways, electric vehicles, green energy, semiconductors, looking at pushing all of these sectors, thereby creating jobs and thereby creating a startups, by pushing startups being able to create more jobs. Of course, remember, again, in that survey that we were talking about, and you can take a look at that, unemployment was among the main concerns for a lot of people. And I'll take you through how the stock market and some of the, economists, analysts have reacted to this manifesto in a little bit as well. Now, it depends. You could, for those people who look at social justice and sort of working with the poor, they will call this welfare initiatives. For those people on the other side of the spectrum, we'll call this freebies. So whichever side you are in, this is the category we're talking to. So this is what the BJP's manifesto promises to give the poor to help them out. First, free ration for 80 crore citizens, and that's a giant, portion of our country's population. Our entire population is about 1.4 billion. So 80 crore out of that will get free ration for the next 5 years. Remember, this was an emergency sort of outreach program that was started during COVID because many people couldn't work because of the lockdown, but it continues even today. Free electricity for poor households and covering people above the age of 70 and trans people in the Ayushman Bharat insurance program. So again, depending on which way, how you feel personally about this sort of thing, you could react to that, but these are the promises that are being made. Now, on the focus of women, the BJP mentions again about the fact that they will implement the Women's Reservation Bill, and they will focus on building women's hospitals and creches to increase women's participation in the workforce, which is right now India's numbers are very disheartening when it comes to women in the workforce. Women have been leaving the workforce since COVID and they have not come back, and that will make our whole country poorer. So obviously by mention of this, there is an intention, there's a notice that it has happened, an intention to solve it, but the solution so far includes hostels and creches. One hopes that we'll see more of that in the future, more clarity in the future. It talks about, this is interesting, a bid to host the Olympics in 2036. Now, this will bring, if India can win this, it could be amazing. And it would bring a large amount of investment to India, would require a huge sort of infrastructure development, which will boost the economy. So that's also an interesting thing to find its way into the manifesto. A couple of things that were missing though from, like I said, the NRC was missing along with CAA, which was mentioned last time. Doubling of farmer incomes, which was mentioned last time, has been removed this time. There's no mention or promise of doubling of farmer incomes. And there was, what was missing is big bang structural reforms. And a lot of the economists, stock market, sort of business voices that get published in business papers felt that that was missing. So reform of, say, labor laws, agriculture, privatization, land laws, opening up of foreign investment was not mentioned here. And they found that sort of disappointing. But I must remind you that these tend to be, changing these laws tend to be unpopular for the people involved. But it tends to be popular for business. So given the fact that this would largely be to get votes, the fact that it has not been mentioned might not mean that it won't be tackled. You just don't want to say something unpopular at this point, I suppose. But the fact that it's been left out, and even economist Swaminathan Iyer on ET Now made this statement where he said at the ET, he said the BJP's manifesto is more of the same. You'd see some scaling up. So like I said, there's nothing big bang. There's nothing new. There's no particular sort of introduction of anything in here. It's just a promise of stability, saying the Prime Minister will continue to do what he's doing and he will push the pedal on it and move it further away. So there's the larger disappointment here is not addressing unemployment, and that's going to become a problem. So for example, one of the analysts had actually said that basically the last 10 years, India's economy has grown, but it has grown to make the rich richer. But the poor have not got as many jobs and their lives have not changed in terms of economics that drastically. If you see the size at which the economy has grown, they have not grown at that same pace. And so there's been no addressing of that in this manifesto. And that is one of the challenges that people have brought up. I'm also going to do a quick comparison between the Congress manifesto and the BJP manifesto. It's really quick, but if you want to know the Congress manifesto, there's another video that has gone up. So for example, just in tone, right, the Congress talks about justice. Justice for youth, women, farmers, and workers. The BJP talks about development for youth, women, farmers, and workers. So it's the same categories of people that they're addressing, but Congress' suggestion for justice means that injustice has already happened. BJP talking about development that has already happened, that they're going to build on going further. Congress talks about doubling the GDP, whereas BJP talks about making India the world's third largest economy. But fundamentally, I suppose the aim is the same, or the end result will be the same. Congress mentions protecting gig workers with more laws. Now, this is something that would horrify the startup industry, because the startup industry, most of these big companies that we see, Ola, Uber, Zomato, Swiggy, Blinkit, all of these guys, they work largely on the gig economy format. So the idea of laws being brought in to protect the worker would actually make the startup industry a little nervous. But on the other side, on the BJP, actually promising to promote the startup industry, to create a more, startup-friendly work environment so that more people can invest, more businesses can be started. So there is like diametrically opposite promises that are being made here. The Congress talks about an apprenticeship program. Remember, again, we talked about this where people who finished colleges will be given sort of internships that they are paid and government will contribute. The BJP is talking about making manufacturing and startup and all of these industries massive so that more people can get jobs through that. Again, the legal guarantee of MSP, the Congress promises, the BJP does not, which I brought up. In defense, the Congress making a massive promise of just basically doing away with the Agnipath scheme and sort of going back to a status quo on the China border. The BJP talks about increasing infrastructure, which we've seen they've already been doing, building roads and bridges and sort of, landing strips across our borders. And they're going to focus on that, building infrastructure across the borders. The Congress has come out and called the BJP's manifesto empty promises. This is Mallikarjun Kharge has said it's a warranty of jumlas. And there's largely that Rahul Gandhi saying two words are missing, inflation and unemployment. So that's the reaction from the opposition on it. Like I said, for me, looking at it, a couple of the promises that I found were new. The one where they are planning on taking the idea of Lord Ram across the world and involving it in diplomacy. We've not seen that mentioned before. But for the rest of it, it seems to be in line with what we've seen over the last 2 years. The Prime Minister doing several interviews right now, reiterating everything that is in the manifesto, effectively promising more stability, continuity, and a continuation of the promises and the development that they have already delivered from the BJP.